Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Alan Hathaway. I'm glad you joined me for this particular series of messages. And this particular message today, I want to talk to you about our relationships. This entire, or most of this month, I'll be talking about relationships and the importance of relationships in our lives. I've said on many occasions, and I still very firmly believe it, the only possessions that you and I can take into eternity, or can hope to take into eternity, are our relationships. And as a result of that, I believe that relationships are central, not only to our salvation experience with Christ, but also to our future. And so it's important that we have strong and healthy relationships with other people, particularly with our fellow believers. In Luke chapter 17, Jesus gives us basically four foundational concepts that I want to take a little bit of a look at today from the first four verses of that chapter. And he said to his disciples, "Temptations to sin are going to come, but woe to the one through whom they come. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were cast into the sea, than that he should cause one of these little ones to sin. Pay attention to yourselves. If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day and turns to you 7 times saying, 'I repent,' you must forgive him." What a powerful statement. And Jesus really lays down 4 concerns that he has for our relationships. It's not everything that Jesus had to say about relationships, and there's a great deal in the New Testament and in the Old Testament about managing relationships and how we deal with the people around us. And those things are extremely important, but Jesus lays down for us 4 aspects of relationship that are critical to understand if we are to maintain and develop good relationships. The first thing that he tells us is that we are broken people. Because of sin in our lives, we have a selfish nature that very often corrupts our relationships in all kinds of strange and weird ways. And because of that, we often do damage to those people that are closest to us. We wound them in ways that are unfair and really cruel at times. And so Christ wants us to understand that we are broken people. He tells us that these causings of failings, or these temptations that break into our relationships, are going to come. But he warns us that they shouldn't come from us. And the implication is that we are broken people, each and every one of us, and that we need to watch out for ourselves, watch out for our motivations and the reasons that we are doing things, and watch especially the things that we say to other people. Those things are critical in this concept of relationship. The next thing he tells us is that we, if we are taking advantage of others' weaknesses, that we are an abomination to God. Ouch. Because it's so easy to take advantage of someone else's weaknesses. He tells us that if anyone causes someone to sin, and that's an interesting word in Greek. In some translations, translated as cause to sin, others translated as cause to stumble. In this particular translation, it translates it with the concept of tempting other people. So any of those translations are appropriate. The word itself is a word we get our word scandal from. It's the Greek word scandalon, and it means to trip up, to cause, to literally put. Originally, the verb meant to put a block or a stone in the path of somebody, intending to trip them up. Later on, the word came to mean setting a trap. And the idea was that you would set a trap, and eventually the noun form of it came to mean the trigger on that trap. And so the idea was that you were ensnaring or trapping somebody intentionally. And so that's what the concept of this word is. And the idea is that in our relationships, for our own desires, we work on the weaknesses and we trap other people by those intents. And it's a really sorry and sad kind of use. There are 3 recordings of these statements by Jesus, one in Matthew, one in Mark, and one in Luke. Matthew chapter 18, Luke chapter 17, and Mark chapter 9. We don't know if these are all the same discourse, just recorded from a different perspective, or they are separate discourses that Jesus had with a different emphasis. And that's, in my opinion, the most likely explanation. But whatever it is an implication to us that this concept of playing on other people's weaknesses, God takes that very seriously. Jesus uses a term here, micron. We get our word micro from that word, and the word micron meant little thing or little one, and it was often a term used for children. But the rabbis used it in the time of Jesus as a term for their youngest disciples who were still naive and not quite worldly and understood the ways of the world. And the idea was that you are taking advantage of their naiveness and their gullibility for your own advantage. And Jesus says that God sees that as an abomination when we take advantage of someone else's weaknesses and their gullibility. God considers that pretty severe. In fact, he says it would be better if you had a millstone hung around your neck and dropped into the sea than to do this kind of thing to other people. And so we are not to take advantage of other people's weaknesses or struggles or their gullibility. The third thing he tells us is that we are accountable for our actions toward other people. And that is a lesson that all of us need to learn. He says, watch out for yourselves. Pay attention to what you are doing. And that is an important lesson that we need to think about. Think about what we're doing when we are interacting with other people. The Apostle Paul would expand that out in Corinthians and in Ephesians to talk to us about the way in which we deal with other people. And in fact, in Romans, he spends a great deal of time talking about how we deal with other people. And it comes directly from this statement of Jesus, the idea that we must pay attention to ourselves and pay attention to what we are doing to other people. That is central. And then he closes it out with our commitment. And the commitment is that we do one of two things. We either repent or we forgive. The idea is that he says that part of paying attention to other people is that we at times are called to rebuke them for bad behavior, for bad action, or for evil intent. Rebuke is part of our responsibility, and Jesus in Matthew chapter 18 goes into a great deal of detail about this concept of proper rebuke. But the idea is that in rebuke is saying this is wrong, you need to change. And if the person admits, fesses up, if you will, repents of that, then the call to mercy and forgiveness is central to our Christian faith. And this concept of forgiveness here in the Greek that is used here is a word which means to send away. And the idea is I send away my right to retribution. I give up my right to punish a person who has wronged me. That is what forgiveness is all about for us as Christians. When a person repents, we offer them grace and forgiveness. But it also calls upon us that when we've done wrong, we admit to it, that we are willing to confess our wrong, and we are willing to repent of it. So those are things that are required in relationships. In fact, I would say they're essential to good relationships. I hope you have good relationships. And if you have broken relationships, I hope that you'll take the time to work at healing them. You may need to confront somebody or rebuke them about something so that hatred doesn't fester in your heart. Or you may need to repent of what you have done to someone else. And you may need to take upon yourself that responsibility. And you may need to forgive somebody who you really don't want to forgive. Those are things that we need to do in order to maintain relationships. We are all fallen creatures. Every human being except Jesus Christ himself is a fallen human being. We need grace. We need forgiveness. We need kindness and mercy. And we need to extend those things. That's what relationships are all about. These next few weeks, we'll be talking about them. I hope to see you in church. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you.